Are you truly living life or merely surviving? Whether you want more time, more love, more money, or whether you want it all, we want to help you get there. The best part? Everything you want lies on the other side of fear and self-doubt. It's time to take the leap with your host, Tiffany Toombs.
Hello everyone, welcome back for episode number 15 of Take the Leap. I am your host, Tiffany Toombs, and this week I want you to stop being a selfish bitch. Whether you're a man or a woman, I want you to stop being a selfish bitch. And I appreciate that that has different connotations if you're a male or a female. I'm looking at it in one way in particular, and that's what I want to dive into this week. Explain what being a selfish bitch is to me, why it became the name of my book, and why that also almost became the name of this podcast. So I think a lot of times people use words or phrases like selfish or selfish bitch, egotistical, up themselves to hold us back. And we're constantly reminded to be humble, to be modest, not to brag. In Australia, they actually have this phrase called the tall poppy syndrome. And that is that you don't want to stick your head too far above the rest because someone may come along and chop it off, which is actually a very terrible thing to talk about. And it really only serves to keep people playing small. I want you to recognize that someone in society benefits from you not shining your brightest, whether that is your employer because you become a good employee and they can harvest your talents and use your talents and your abilities to put more money in their pocket, whether that is the government because then they have more control over you, you become a good citizen, you pay your taxes, you never question anything and you do what you're told, whether that is the school system. It makes you easier to control and, again, do what you're told. Are you seeing a pattern to this thing where people want to control you? Or whether it's big corporates or big pharma that benefit financially from you feeling like you need their products and services, you need their drugs and medications in order to fit in. None of us were put here to fit in. In fact, my mentor, Marshall Silver, says that it was a glorious day for fools when modesty became a virtue, because this need to be modest or this need to be humble, it really puts people in a box and tells us that we don't want to grow too big or too quickly because then we might make others feel bad about themselves. This is the whole premise of participation trophies, right? We don't want anybody to feel bad about themselves because they're not as good as somebody else, so we don't keep score. Or we reward everyone equally, except in a free trade, fair market society where we value democracy, where we value being able to have the freedom to run our businesses. That doesn't work. That only works in a socialist or a communist society, which the majority of us listening to this don't live in. And so we have to get away from this notion that by my shining my light brightly, that I take away from anybody else, or that if I grow quickly, that impedes someone's growth. The truth is, whether we're talking about growth or success or happiness, none of it is pie. Just because I have some success, some influence, some shining brightness, that doesn't take away from any of you. In fact, my shining bright only serves to lead you to shine even brighter because it tells your unconscious mind that it's safe to do. And this is where this whole premise of Stop Being a Selfish Bitch was born for me. And Stop Being a Selfish Bitch really was a personal project for me to start in the beginning because I was surrounded by people who every time I followed my heart or I did what my gut told me to do, I was told that I was being selfish, that I was being stupid or silly, or that I was being a selfish bitch, that I was up myself, that all I cared about was myself, when really I was just following what I felt on a soul level needed to happen. When I first moved to Australia, I had to disappoint some people. In fact, in the last year of my undergraduate degree, the second last year of my undergraduate degree, I had two of Canada's top master's supervisors come to me. These are people who have stacks of applications on their desk year in and year out for them to supervise master's students from across Canada. And people are willing to move heaven and earth to have these two mentor them. And so they came to me in my second last year of university and they said, look, we both want to mentor you and we can't figure out a fair way to decide who gets to mentor you in your master's, so we've decided to co-supervise you. We have never before approached a student and said that we want to supervise you. You are the first one. You're kind of, the prodigy that we've been looking for. And so we've also gone to the university and asked them if it's okay if you start your master's in the last year of your undergraduate degree, and this is going to be your topic. You are going to study handheld dynamometry and manual muscle testing. If you don't know what those terms mean, I assure you it's not overly exciting. It is essentially creating a standardized measure where if a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, an athletic therapist is testing the strength of your bicep by having you bend your elbow to 90 degrees and they push down on your hand while you resist them, then every athletic therapist, every physiotherapist, every occupational therapist is using the same framework, the same standardized framework to measure that out of 5, so that if an athlete comes to me and I say, well, their bicep strength was a 2 on this day, and then they go to another therapist on a 6 months later, that they're being measured on the same scale, is essentially what my master's project I was told was going to be on. And in my mind at that time, what you did for your master's determined the path for the rest of your career. And I had to ask myself, do I really want to be known as the manual muscle testing person? Is that something that would really excite me for the rest of my life? And to be honest, I really tried. I tried my hardest to get excited about that. I spent my summer between the third and fourth year of my undergraduate degree in the library doing a lit review on any manual muscle testing or handheld dynamometry papers that had been written, and I tried really hard to get excited about it because this was an incredible opportunity ahead of me, and I was being told by two brilliant minds that I highly respected that this is what I needed to do. And it wasn't until I went shopping down in Idaho with my mom, I'll never forget the day, we were in Costco, and my mom turned away to pick up a pair of jeans and look at them. And when she turned back, I was a blubbering mess. I had completely broken down in the middle of Costco. I felt like I was having a panic attack. It felt like someone was suffocating me, both pulling me under the water and sitting on my chest at the same time. I could barely breathe. I had tears pouring down my face, and my mom just looked at me and was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know if I can go through with this master's." And she said, "Well, then don't." And it seemed like such a simple answer at the time, except for me, I had so many people telling me, you would be a fool not to take this. You would be a fool to let this opportunity slide by. And I think that happens to so many people. Whether people tell you that you're being selfish or that you're being a fool to let an opportunity pass, it doesn't matter. We are told that we have to take every opportunity that comes our way, because what if it's the last opportunity that comes? And I want you to realize that not every opportunity that comes your way is in alignment with what you're meant to be doing in this life. Not every opportunity that comes your way is what you should be doing. And I recognize that where I am now in my life, because I live a life by intention. I know what my purpose is in this lifetime. And if something doesn't align with that, then I say no very easily. At the time, I had no idea what I was here for. And so when two brilliant minds come to you and they say, this is what you're supposed to be doing, when you're young and you're naive and you're impressionable, even if you're not young, if you're in a position to be influenced by anybody, which we all are at some point in time, then it becomes really easy to turn off of our own inner voice and say, well, I guess this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is an incredible opportunity. I have to say yes. And so when I finally went to my master supervisors and I said, look, I can't do this. I'm sorry. This isn't what I feel like is right for me. I thoroughly appreciate that you came to me. I thoroughly appreciate and respect that you respect me enough to want to offer me this opportunity. It's just not in alignment with what I want to do. One of the first questions that I got was, well, what are you going to do instead? And I said, I feel like I have to go to Australia. I have felt for my entire 5-year degree, I have felt called to Australia, so I'm going to go. And the response I got back was, you will never get this opportunity again. If you walk away from this conversation and you're not committed to your master's degree and you go to Australia, we will not only never offer you this opportunity again, if you were to apply for us to supervise you, we would say no. Now is not the time to go off and find yourself traveling in some other country. Now is the time to do and to take this opportunity that's ahead of you. And there was a small part of me that felt like, is this the right decision? And I'm so glad that I walked away from that conversation remembering my breakdown in Costco and that I didn't give in. And there was countless times since when I was living in Australia for 8 years that family or friends or other people told me that it was mighty selfish of me to be living on the other side of the world when all of my friends and family were back home and they were having kids and I was missing out on seeing my cousins or my friends raise their kids and that, their kids wouldn't know me as well as they should and that was going to be my fault. My point in telling you all of this is because I want you to realize that people do these things to keep you safe. People do these things or say these comments because they don't know what their inner voice is telling them. They don't have that purpose or direction in their life, or they don't have the courage to follow it. And that's okay. That there doesn't need to be any judgment against those people. We do, however, need to keep walking and show more and more people that it's totally safe to listen to that inner voice. While I was in Australia, I fell in love with mindset coaching. I realized the power that it had in my own life, and I knew that I'm here to help people. And I'd spent my 15-year career at that point helping people feel comfortable in their own skin through fitness and through athletic training. And I recognized that maybe if I really wanted to have an impact on this world, that I needed to switch to mindset. Except I was running multiple other businesses. And again, my business partners in those businesses, I believe that they saw my talent in coaching people, in helping people become a better person. And anytime it threatened their position in the company, or anytime it threatened that I wouldn't work 80-hour weeks for that company because I was doing some coaching on the side, they did whatever they could to tell me that I couldn't coach anymore. I even had one business partner to go so far as to say, we are going to partner with these other highly successful people and we're going to join all of our businesses into a conglomerate. And that means that you won't have the ability to make money any other way, which means you're either going to have to let go of your coaching or you're going to have to bring it into the fold and give everyone else a cut of it. And I was like, if I'm spending this time one-on-one, there's no way I'm giving somebody else a cut of it, especially because at the time I was charging like $100 a session. I was like, I'll literally get $5 per client that I work with. That's not even worth my time. And they said, well, I guess you're going to have to give it up. Luckily, the universe has always had my back and pushes me, without a doubt, slams doors shut in my face so that I have to make decisions. And so when that same business partner, I found out, had not been telling me the full truth on some of our legal contracts and had been doing some shady things on the side, and I was forced to resign from the business, I took that as a sign that I needed to make some changes. And I did 3 months of soul searching before I moved back to North America. And it was while I was journaling one day that Stop Being a Selfish Bitch really was born and came to life. And I was moving back to a very conservative, we don't talk about our feelings mindset community. The community that I was moving back to was just recovering from recession. And I felt like I had to set up my coaching business, except I was continuously being told, you can't do that. You would make a really great receptionist. You need to get the safe job, the 9 to 5. You need to do something practical because there is no way that anyone is going to seriously hire you or pay you enough money for you to survive. And that was already my own fear. They were really just voicing the fears that I had and projecting those back onto me, because up until that point, coaching had always been a hobby. It had always been a side hustle or something that I worked into the other businesses with the athletes where I could. And so I had my own questions of, can I make this work? Can I actually financially support myself in a coaching business? And I was journaling one day, and I had just had this incredible coaching session with a woman whose life had been riddled with abuse, physical and sexual. And it had started from when she was young with her dad sexually abusing her, her mom physically abusing her. She then left and got married at 15 to a man who was wonderful up until the moment they walked in the door after they got married, and he beat the living crap out of her. And then beat their daughter when the daughter was first born, and was still, like 15 years later, stalking her and her family. She then left him, got married again to a man who ended up being a pedophile and sexually abused her daughters. And her life was just riddled with abuse after abuse after abuse until she was really broken down. And I had been working with her for a number of weeks, and it was her last clearing session on a person, on a negative influence. And I looked down at my notes to write something down that she had said, and I looked back up, and I kid you not, she looked 20 years younger. And my jaw dropped, and I completely lost track of where I was in the session, because it was like I was in some sort of time warp. Like all of a sudden this woman's face has dropped 20 years. And I was just like, I have no idea what just happened. And so after she left, one of the things that she had said at the beginning of our coaching sessions was that she loved singing, but she had lost the ability to sing for so long, and it felt like there was this lump in her throat that was stopping her. And she texted me on the way home and said, my favorite song came on the radio, and I went to sing expecting to not be able to sing, and just this amazing voice came out, and I sang at the top of my lungs, and it was the most amazing thing. Thank you for giving me my life back. And I realized then the power in what I do. And I realized that I truly do have a gift. And that gift is to help people feel comfortable enough to open up and to deal with and heal the emotional wounds that they've been holding on to for 10, 20, 30, 50, even 60 years in some cases. And a couple days later is when I was journaling, and I said to myself, can I really do this full time? Can I make a living from coaching? I'm really scared. I'm worried that I'm going to fail. And I had written down all of these things that I was afraid of. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail in front of my family. I'm going to fail in front of all these other people who think that I'm super successful or that I'm super smart. I'm going to fail in front of my former business partners who I'm sure are going to be wanting me to fail. And I don't know if I'll be able to look myself in the eye if I fail. And then from out of nowhere, my hand just started moving on the page, and it said, you know what? You change people's lives. You've only been doing this part-time, and yet you've seen the difference that it makes in people's life. You've seen people physically transform, like this woman who lost 20 years off of her face. And so if you decide to give in to this fear and to give in to this negative self-talk, then all those people who are waiting to cross your path will never find the healing and the coaching that they need to take their life back. And it was in that moment that I realized that the most selfish thing that I could do was to hold this gift inside of me and to not share it with the world. So I posed a question to myself: what would happen if I went all in on myself for 1 year, for 12 months? If I just, for 365 days straight, if I believed in myself, what could I accomplish? And so that really became the theme for 2018 for me. And I kept track of the numbers. The numbers were that I worked with 155 one-on-one clients. I presented at 10 different corporate offices or businesses. I presented it to over 500 people in the first year. I wrote my first book. I started my podcast. And I was published in a number of publications, including Addicted to Success, Elephant Journal, and Badassery Magazine. And I was quoted as an expert by countless other publications like Brit & Co., Bustle, Weight Watchers Canada. And so looking back on those numbers, I recognized, wow, like I don't want to go back to a life of fear and self-doubt. And it was really midway through the year when I started adding up the numbers and seeing even 6 months in how big of a difference I'd made, that I recognized that I needed to write a book. And that is where Stop Being a Selfish Bitch comes from. Because instead of allowing the term selfish bitch to hold us back, we can use it to propel us forward. I honestly believe that each and every one of us here on this earth is here with a gift. We have a gift, a talent, a message, a story that we are meant to share with the world. And if we don't share that message, for whatever reason, we're scared, we don't like vulnerability, we are worried what other people think, whatever it is, if we don't share that message with the world, that's when we're being a selfish bitch. Because we're taking our God-given or our universe-given talent and we're hoarding it to ourselves. We're staying stuck in ourselves and not using that message or that gift to change someone's life. And it doesn't matter. Some of you reading this may be thinking, or listening to this may be thinking, well, you know what? I'm not here to be a coach. I wouldn't be a good coach. I wouldn't even know what to coach people on. Or my childhood wasn't riddled with abuse or toxic friendships or relationships. I've had a pretty good life. And that's okay. You don't need to be a coach to change someone's life. If we were all coaches, the world would be pretty boring and pretty annoying, to be honest, because we'd all just be wanting to coach each other. Your gift or your message may be to bake the best apple pie and to give someone 5 or 10 minutes of happiness as they taste what you have created in the oven. Your gift may be doing the best oil change or the best tire rotations, or being the best and most honest mechanic that people feel safe and comfortable bringing their cars to, knowing that they won't be taken advantage of. Whatever it is, your story is powerful for people. And it doesn't matter if there's been abuse or anything that you've had to overcome in your life. The right people who are meant to find you will find you. I want you to hear that. The right people who are meant to find you will be drawn to you by your story, whatever it is. And so we need to be willing to be vulnerable enough to share our story and to put it out for the world to hear, because that's what we're here for. We are hardwired for connection. We are hardwired to be part of a tribe. And that doesn't necessarily mean the tribe that you were born into. Be okay with the fact that Your family, your blood tribe, may not be the tribe that you have forever. And it's totally okay to let go of some of those people. I have. I've made the decision to just cut my biological dad loose. 34 years later, whenever he does reach out and attempt to make contact with me, his message and his words to me are still riddled with lies. I don't have to have him part of my life just because I have his DNA in me. All that does is further promote toxicity and abuse and negativity in my life. Your tribe, the people who you're truly meant to be connected with, will be connected to you through your story and through your message, through whatever gift it is that you have to share with this world. And if you're thinking, well, I'm not the only person who makes a really good apple pie, or not the only person who can change the oil, that's fine. You do it in a way that is unique to you. I'm not the only coach in the world. I'm not the only one with a story of child abuse and toxic relationships and a miscarriage. And yet, I still have a following that follows me because of the way that I tell my story. I've had people come to my workshops who say, I've heard the stuff that you're talking about before, and yet the way that you tell it made more sense to me than any time I've heard it before. Have you ever had that experience where you hear a story or a piece of information from one person and you don't really relate to it or connect to it, and then down the track, a couple months, a couple years later, you hear the same piece of information and all of a sudden it clicks for you and it makes sense? It's because of the person who is delivering the message. So be okay being similar to other people and know that you're still unique. There is still something about you that is different from everyone else because they don't have your particular story. A couple weeks ago, I posted a comment in a women's group about how we really, if we want to influence the world, it has to come from the inside out. As women, we have to step into our power and recognize how amazing we are. And I shared, at that point, it was the 6-year anniversary of my finding out of my partner's infidelity and my resulting miscarriage. And so I shared a little bit of my story. And within the first day, I had over 1,000 people who had liked the post, over 300 comments, and over 50 people reached out to connect with me personally, and countless others who went to my website. So it doesn't matter if you have a similar story to somebody else or a similar message. The people who are meant to be impacted by you will find their way to you as soon as you get out of your own way. So today I want you to stop being a selfish bitch. Start for a week. What would happen if for the next 7 days you took fear, you took self-doubt, you took negative self-talk and all the other crap that holds you back? What would happen if you put all of that into a box and you put it up in the shelf and you decided to go all in on yourself for 7 days? To say yes to any opportunity that came along to help you grow, to step into your power, to step into your authenticity that would allow you to become the best possible version of who you are. What would happen in 7 days? That's my challenge for you. Put that fear and self-doubt up on the shelf in a box. You can go back to it. There's this belief of if we change something, we can never go back. I can tell you, you can. For a long time, I was a brunette. I went back to being blonde. I lived in Australia for 8 years. I moved back to Canada. You can always go back. You can go back to a life of negative self-talk and fear. But what would happen if you just decided to put that on pause for 7 days? Just 7 days. Not that long of a period of time. Go all in on yourself. Take the action that you need to. Say yes to the opportunities that you need and see what happens differently in your life. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you're going to take this challenge, please feel free to reach out to me at Tiffany at Blue Lotus Mind. Share your journey over the next 7 days, or maybe you decide to just go for it and go all in on yourself for 365 days, which is even better in my opinion. See what kind of numbers you post. I'm very competitive, so I'm happy for you to compete with my numbers. I should mention that in that 365 days of going all in on myself and sharing my story, I had one article that was published on Elephant Journal have over 100,000 views and over 16,500 shares. So I'm happy to compete. If you're competitive, let me tap into that side of you. 365 days or 7 days of going all in on yourself, you decide. But it starts with taking the leap into stopping being a selfish bitch right now. You can also connect with me and my community on Facebook, facebook.com/Blue Lotus Mind, and share your journey there with the rest of us. And just a reminder, if you need a little bit of help, if you want some support on this journey to stepping into your power, to stepping into your light, and to share your message, your gift, your talent with the world, I have a free 10-day training over at www.limitlessplaybook.com. It's absolutely free. You're going to get 10 days worth of video trainings and worksheets from me to help you really get clear on where you're going, what's holding you back, and to let go of the ties that bind you so that you can move freely and confidently into the future that you want. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you are listening on iTunes, I would love if you would give me a 5-star review. That will allow more people to find me and to listen to the content that I put out so that I can help empower and inspire more people to live an intentional life aligned with the truth of their soul so that they can also stop being a selfish bitch. And I will be here again next week with another great episode for you. I look forward to hanging out with you all then. Have an amazing day full of abundance and prosperity.